What's up, and welcome back to Emerald and Lilywhite, the official podcast of Seattle Spurs, the number one Spurs podcast in all of Washington. I'm your host, Max Marchand, and today I am joined by the president of the Brennan Johnson fan club and my co-host, Scott G. Bird. Next to Scott, we got the number one Brian Hill fan on the internet, Alex Chang. And next to him, we have James Madison enthusiast himself, Keegan McMurray. How are we doing today, boys?
Good,
Pleasure.
man.
Good to be here.
Doing great.
Yeah, so we got a packed podcast. So let's get straight into the meat of it. We have signed from Burnley the French 19-year-old Wilson Odobert. And he is a left and right winger who can play on either side. Great with the ball at his feet. Great 1v1 player. So immediate reactions to this signing. I know we all thought we needed a winger. We got one for about 30 million. So what is your reaction, Alex, to the signing of Wilson Odobert?
Bro, start him on Monday, bro. Like I don't want to see Brennan Johnson again. Like I know Scott loves Brennan Johnson, but Odobert, like, give this guy some minutes. He's electric down the wing. He's been something that we're missing. 1v1 technician, love to see him play, give him some minutes on Monday for sure.
Absolutely. 98th percentile touches in opponent's box, 99th percentile take-ons attempted, 99th percentile successful take-ons, 99th percentile progressive carries, and 99th percentile carries into the penalty area. That is the data-driven strategy that Spurs have implemented with their recruitment in these recent years. Scott, are you pleased with the signing and the strategy that Spurs have used to implement it?
Yeah, for real. It reminds me of what City was doing circa 16, 17 with the types of profiles that they were bringing in as they continued to build their club to what it is today. So I think the only way that in the current market where nation states purchase clubs and just dump money into it, I think the only way for us to get there is to do exactly what we're doing, and that's invest in players who aren't quite there yet, but we anticipate through, again, the data that you've mentioned, we anticipate that they will be there eventually, in 2 to 3 years or whatever, and we're on our way. So I think just another example of the wonderful work that we're doing, as a club and as a scouting department and all of that. I don't expect him to slot right in by any means. I think he's going to have to prove himself, before he usurps a Kulusevski or Johnson on the right or Sonny on the left. Obviously, I think we're a little lighter on the left-hand side, and he can seemingly play both sides pretty well, but I'm looking forward to seeing what this kid can bring.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about depth on the right wing position. So, Keegan, do you think where do you think he stacks up? How many minutes do you think he's getting this season compared to a guy like Brennan Johnson?
Yeah, first of all, I think it was such an interesting signing. Like, it came out of nowhere. There was no reports from any major journalist, and literally within 25 minutes of a report from a journalist I'd never heard of, Spurs had announced it fully, which is it just was. It just felt weird to me all around. I think he'll probably get more minutes on the right just because obviously Sonny is locked down that left wing position. I think Brennan is the one that needs a bit more challenge behind him to keep him at the top of his form. But yeah, just kind of a weird signing for me, especially after a couple of reports earlier this week where it was that Pedro Neto was our main target, and we were really disappointed that we didn't get Pedro Neto. It seemed to me that after that we would go for somebody that's a bit more established, kind of like Pedro Neto, than a 19-year-old. I'm not saying that I'm disappointed with it. It's just kind of a weird switch of game plan from Spurs in the winger position, I felt like. But I think he'll probably get more minutes on the right than the left this season.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, I agree. I thought we would bring in someone a little bit more senior, but I think this just speaks to the fact that they think he's ready to be in the first team. And I look at his season at Burnley last year, that was pretty much a great loan. He spent 1 year in the Premiership learning it, came from Troy. in France. And I think that our fan base would be even more excited if we signed him straight away from France. We'll be like, oh, we have this PSG academy teenager, but no, he's from Burnley. So I feel like it looks less sexy, but absolutely pumped to see him play. I think he will be a regular in our team. So the other big news of the week, Spurs related, Mauricio Pochettino reportedly the coach of the U.S. men's national team. I know this is your boy, Scott. Give me your take. How excited are you? We've talked about this before, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. And I'm a fairly even-keeled person, so it might not be fully expressed in my face, right? But I'm just absolutely beyond words for what this means for the organization, or for the federation, rather. But I think there's two names. When we came out and said we wanted, a serial winner, world-class manager, Klopp and Pochettino. Klopp came out immediately and said, I'm not interested in anything. I'm taking a sabbatical. And Pochettino was the other name, so to go out and get him is incredible. I think there's going to be pushback, not necessarily on this podcast, but just in general, right, to the serial winner piece of it all. But we're talking about a guy who took not a very talented Spurs squad, to 2 second-place Premier League finishes, a Champions League final, multiple cup finals, multiple cup semifinals. So yeah, I think the serial winner tag is very much applicable, and people are going to say like he came up short again in the Champions League final, and he came up short in cup finals. But we're talking about, again, finishing runner-up in the peak of world club football, right? So he's very talented, and for us to go out and get him shows the ambition of the federation. You have to point out that him and Matt Crocker have a good relationship from their time together at Southampton, which goes a long way. But this felt like a pipe dream for me, and so I'm thrilled. And then the last thing I'll say before I let others jump in is I think that this will be a manager who will come in, and the days of sure, Tim Weah, you're at Juventus, you don't quite play, but you're at Juventus, get on in here, you're on the squad. Those days are gone. You've got to be playing club football regularly, a starter for whatever club you're at, in order to come in and be a part of the organization. There is no selection based off past or relationship or camaraderie or anything like that, right? The leadership circle is now probably gone, and that's a really good thing for the federation. So it's, I'm not a fan of Berhalter. I could go on and on about it, but this is like, night and day compared to what has been managing the United States men's national team. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, completely agree. I'm not here for the Tim Weah slander, but that was a little bit of a stray, because he is the one who brought us to this situation with Pochettino as our manager. Had he not gotten that red card, we still would have Big Greg in office.
Good shot.
Keagan, how do you think our personnel matches up with the style that Pochettino intends to play? I personally have my questions about whether we have the technical ability to play that possession-based footy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that one part of our game that we do really match up well with is kind of a youthful exuberance in like our pressing. Poch plays obviously a really aggressive, high pressing line, and I think that like the youth in our midfield and the kind of the gung ho style of a lot of our midfielders like Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, I think matches really well. I think Weston McKennie will really flourish, because I think Weston is kind of the perfect mix of technical quality and kind of high pressing, getting stuck in. But yeah, I also agree. I think that especially with our defensive line, I think there's a bit of a lack of quality on the ball, and I think that could come back to bite us with Poch's style. But hopefully, he can work to implement that within our young defenders.
Yeah, agreed. I think defense and midfield will be a little bit of the problem, but let's focus on something positive. Chang, who are some players that you think will really take the next step under Poch for the U.S.?
Firstly, it's got to be Pulisic. I think he's had a bit of a problem time at Chelsea. Definitely revitalized his career at AC Milan. Even U.S. men's national team, always been our talisman. Gio Reyna, I hope we can finally see something from him. His development has definitely stalled a little bit. He gets no club playing time. Definitely needs to find a club where he can be that starting left wing or 10 just week in, week out. Hopefully, I think Poch can definitely work something there. Poch, infamous for working with young talent. Dele Alli definitely hit his peak under Poch. Fell off a little bit afterwards, sadly. But yeah, Gio Reyna, I think Serginho Dest, like amazing technical ability. I think you look at him at the right back, he's dribbling, he's taking his man on. I think Poch can hopefully work with him a little with some tactics, make up for his defensive liability a little bit. And yeah, so I think that the appointment of Poch definitely shows ambition. I think that, internet warriors on Instagram definitely will like question how many trophies has he won. Nobody can tell me
Legal.
a single name out of the hat that would be better than Poch. Like, we're not gonna get Pep Guardiola.
Yeah.
Poch is the best, and like honestly, way out of our league when it really comes to managers. So I think that for the U.S. men's national team fan base to be questioning this signing really shows like the intelligence of soccer in America, because there should be no questions about it. It's like one of the best appointments we could have had. So
Yeah, real quick too. I love everything you're saying, Chang. I think it really just speaks to, again, what you just said speaks to the frustration around Greg Berhalter having been the manager, and I'll tie it back to what you said about people maybe thinking that Poch is out of our league, which he probably is a little bit, but we have a home World Cup coming up in less than 2 years, right? It was the expectation for me to go out and get someone like this, because you're guaranteeing them a World Cup and you're guaranteeing them a World Cup on home soil with a talented group of players. And it really reminds me of what he had at Spurs when he came in. Young group. I really very strongly agree with all of you that the defense is going to be a major problem. We're very light when it comes to our defensive ranks, right? I may be a little more keen on what our midfield can do for Pochettino than some of you are, but from an attacking perspective, we're flying. So I really think, as much as people want to say that this is a step down for Pochettino, this is an opportunity to manage at a home World Cup, which very few managers get to do in their career. Like very, very few, right? Get to manage a team at a home World Cup. So it's awesome for Pochettino. It's awesome for the Federation. I have hope that, I'm not saying we're going to win the World Cup, but I have hope that we can go do something special and maybe make a run deeper into the tournament. And under Berhalter, we would have gotten bounced out of the group stage by the second week, in my opinion, right? So it's exciting.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for Poch to come. I do think he was the best manager available, and we ended up getting him, which is pretty incredible. I feel like I have a bit more ill will towards Poch than some of us on this podcast do, namely Scott. But yeah, I just can't get over that he went to Chelsea. Like, I'm sorry, like that he's forever tainted in my mind for that, and I don't think I'm going to back the U.S. national team. I love the U.S. But it's just like, yeah, Poch, like I would be so much more excited if this was like 3 years ago rather than coming off a season playing for the Shites. So moving right along, my boy Oliver Skip is departing Tottenham Hotspur for a sum of 25 million. Well done, Ollie Skip. That is all profit because he is one of our own. 20 million plus add-ons to Leicester City, who we are playing tomorrow. Chang, what is your initial reaction to the Oliver Skip sale?
Bro, honestly, 25 million, dude, he can leave. I will drive him to the airport myself. You look at it, 25 million, that's more than Højbjerg. That's probably more than we're gonna get for Lo Celso, English tax, homegrown fee, definitely coming in clutch. You think about it, we offered 40 million plus Oliver Skip to Wolves for Pedro Neto, got rejected. That's a 65 million like bundle now that we look at it. for Pedro Neto, a guy who has only played more than 20 games once in the past 3 seasons, pretty crazy that that really got rejected. I mean, I would have loved to see Pedro Neto here, obviously join Chelsea. But honestly, Oliver Skip, I had big hopes for him under Nuno that first month. I mean, I thought he was going to be a world beater, honestly. Him and Højbjerg, or yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, him and Højbjerg. In that midfield, we were top of the league. We beat Man City. Like, man, that first month had me dreaming. But
9
anyways,
points.
Oliver Skip, sad to see him go. I mean, obviously one of our own. They came up through the academy. But you think about it, we have like Archie Gray, definitely a lot of competition in that position. He was never gonna play, so 25 million, I'll take it. Good to see him go.
Yeah. So Keegan, now Leicester City are shaping up to have a midfield of Harry Winks and Oliver Skip. How does that make you feel being those are our academy boys?
I mean, the only thing I know is that we're gonna face Leicester at home in a couple months' time from now, and we're gonna get a Winksy masterclass and an Ollie Skip banger like he did against Chelsea. But I mean, I think Skip was surplus to requirements anyway. Obviously, it's really sad to see him go because you always are rooting especially hard for guys that come all the way up through the academy. But yeah, he really was just surplus to requirements. We have so much midfield talent. And I really think he's the epitome of the kind of player that just is going to thrive in a lower level Prem team and would really, really struggle in an Ange Postecoglou possession-based system. So yeah, I think it's great for all parties. 25 million is an absolutely a fair fee. I agree. Maybe it's a little too much in my opinion. I would have done maybe 10 or 15 million. But yeah, I think he still has a lot of potential, and I think he'll actually really thrive at Leicester. I think it'll be a great system for him under Steve Cooper. I think he'll be really important if Leicester are to stay up next year. So, yeah.
Yeah. Scott, I'm gonna throw to you. You've always been a big Oliver Skip fan. 2023-24 season predictions. You had him as our young player of the season. 1 year later, he is out of the door. What was your favorite moment from Oliver Skip's tenure with the first team?
The one thing that comes to mind is that banger he scored against Chelsea. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe last year. But yeah, I'm a fan. But I also think it's very much time for him to move on. I think one of the things that I've talked about for a couple of years now is that Spurs fans, we're gonna as we reach this next echelon as a club and start to compete at the top of European football, we're gonna have to get used to players that we've grown fond of, especially academy guys moving on. Big clubs move on guys like it's nothing, right? Just time to go, see it. What's best for the club is what's best for the club, and I think as Spurs fans, we maybe more so than other clubs really become attached to players in an unhealthy way at times, and I think that some of that is because we haven't won anything in a long time, and so that player attachment is something that we have that's tangible in front of us, right? Rather than accolades. But yeah, Skip's just frankly not good enough for what we're trying to do as a football club. I'm bummed for him that he went to Leicester in the sense that they're gonna get relegated. And mainly I say that because they've been deducted points and they're in the hole, right? So they've got an absolute mountain to climb if they're going to stay in the league. And I expect them to finish dead last quite handily. So we'll see what happens. But I'm thrilled for him in the sense that he's going to get to play football. And like Winksy last year, if they do go down, he'll be the best player in the championship, arguably, or at least one of the best midfielders in the championship. And, he'll rebound from it. And assuming Leicester doesn't fuck around anymore, they'll come back up eventually, and he'll be a big part of that squad. So yeah, I'm happy for Skip. I wish it was a Southampton or something like that, right, rather than a Leicester City. But I'm glad he'll get to play football.
Yeah. So yeah, I was a huge Oliver Skip fan from the jump. Being how into the academy lads I am, he was one of the first ones that really panned out for us post Harry Kane. So I wrote him a little bit of a farewell message. Oliver Skip, where do I begin? You were the light in the darkness. You were a beacon of hope. That goal against Chelsea, that performance at the San Siro, 20 years old, day in and day out in the Premier League. Join Winksy and keep Leicester up. I've always wanted some more. Oliver Skip. So thank you, Oliver Skip.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you guys.
That's
Thank
really
you.
sweet, Max, because Oliver Skip is a big fan of our podcast. I know he'll definitely read that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hey,
so
Oliver,
that'll be really meaningful for him.
Oliver, I hope you continue listening even after you have gone your separate ways. So I'm just going to throw to Chang quickly here. Last podcast, you mentioned we need a 6. Do you think that signing potentially becomes more likely with Skippy's departure?
Honestly, not really, because Skip wasn't really in the plans anyway. So, him leaving, I mean, I guess it does open up a midfield spot if we do want to sign somebody. I know we are interested. I'm not really sure like who we would sign, honestly. I know I mentioned this last time, but there really aren't many 6s floating around the market right now. So I'm not really sure who we'd go after if we were to. I know, like, obviously we have players that can do the job there, so I wouldn't count on it, honestly, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. And before we move on, I just want to quickly add that this signing was made possible by the signing of Dominic Solanke. So we would have the number of homegrown players that we would need to register a full Premier League squad. Skip, however, was one of only 3 club-trained players we have. So now our Europa League squad, already diminished from the 26, is now going to be only 23 players. And we need all those fringe players registered so they can give people breaks during the league. So that is something to watch for if we're signing club-trained players, which we only have 2 of them. We would have to register some academy boys to be able to register a full 26, but I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue because of the amount of teenage talent that we have right now, but it is definitely something to watch. So speaking of Leicester City, this is our first Lilywhite look ahead, brought to you by the Wits End Bar in Finney Ridge, where you can catch the Leicester City game tomorrow at noon at the Wits End, our first kickoff of the 24-25 season. And this is our first Lilywhite look ahead. So I'm going to throw it to Keagan right off the bat. What do you expect to see tactically for us against Leicester tomorrow?
Yeah, if I'm being really honest, I've had this extreme nervous anxiety all weekend. I just cannot get past the fact that we're going to be playing on Monday in the Premier League again. I'm so excited and I'm so nervous at the same time. Just kind of the way Spurs have kind of groomed me to make me feel over the past 10, 15 years of watching them, just kind of nervous excitement. Obviously, I think we'll go for it. I think that Leicester is a team that lacks obviously the same quality that we have, and so we should dominate a lot of the ball. Press really high. I saw an interview between a We Are Tottenham TV and a Leicester fan who was talking about what they're going to be looking like for this game, and the Leicester fans seem to lack any confidence at all. I think they had a pretty poor preseason, and that Scott Cooper was a pretty or Steve Cooper, sorry, he was a pretty underwhelming hire, I think, for a lot of the fans. And so I think the vibes are pretty low at Leicester, and I think it could get toxic pretty quick if Spurs put in a couple early goals. So I anticipate a game where Spurs dominate a lot of the ball, create a lot of chances. I think it'll be a relatively easy walk in the park for us, but you just never know on a Monday night in Leicester. So we'll see.
Yeah, we are away to Leicester on a Monday night. And like Keagan said, Leicester got a new manager. That is Steve Cooper, who was sacked by Nottingham Forest last season. Their manager from last year, which helped them top the championship, was Enzo Maresca, who is now managing the Chelsea. So, Scott, how do you think we stack up against this current Leicester squad? Is there any players that you would watch for on the Leicester team to potentially hurt us?
Frankly, there's none. And I don't mean to make light of them, but they're terrible. I mean, Pat Sadaka's not available. Jamie Vardy's not available. Their only registered striker right now is a gentleman. I believe his name is
Mavididi?
no. it's an English guy, and I just had his name pulled up, and I've lost it now. But
I think it's something Carroll.
yes, thank you. It is. It's Tom. I almost said Tom Carroll, but that's not it. Tommy Carroll, love that guy. But
Andy
but
Carroll.
no, yeah, Andy Carroll. But anyways, all I know is he was on loan last year in the championship. Did okay. Came back to Leicester City. Scored a couple of goals in the championship. Tom Copper is his name, I believe. Don't maybe fact check me there, but anyways, their only registered striker is a guy no one's ever heard of, and they're just a really poor side who, again, faces the mental challenge of coming in the hole into the Premier League. Right, anytime you've been promoted and you're in the hole points wise, not only is there an actual hill to climb, but there's a mental one as well. So I expect us to absolutely play Leicester City off the park. Now, when they come back to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, I think it'll be a different story, and they'll have settled into the Premier League. But week one, I expect us to go and absolutely smack them around. And if we don't, I'll be concerned, about Spurs. But I don't expect that. I think we'll take 3 points pretty handily.
Yeah, for me, the one to watch is our boy Harry Winks, Winkabell, oozing pixie dust out there. So we'll see how he stacks up against our midfield, which we are moving into right now. Our midfield, the most crowded area of the pitch right now. We have plenty of players that are itching to get a go in that. So I'm just going to invite us to power rank those guys right now. So I will list the players in our midfield, and then I will invite you guys to power rank those. Where in the team sheet are these guys relative to the others? I'll start with you, Alex Chang. I'm throwing Kulusevski in this list. Kulusevski, Madison, Bentancur, Gray, Bergvall, Sarr, Basuma. Rank those names.
I think if we're talking about, Kulusevski can play the 8, can play the 10. I would say for in the 10, relative to the 10, I would say Madison's obviously number 1, but I think that could change if he has a few like subpar performances. I think we could definitely see Kulusevski or Bergvall there. I think we got definitely are considering Kulusevski as more of a midfielder than winger. Obviously he doesn't fit the system as a winger, like too slow, can't beat his man really, can't get to the byline. Kulusevski, I think, yeah. So relative to the 10, I'd say Madison, Kulusevski, Bergvall. Relative to the 8, I would say Bentancur, Kulusevski, Sarr. Definitely feel free if you disagree, like chime in. But definitely not someone who rates Kulusevski very highly. I don't really think he has what we want, or he doesn't really have what it takes to make it in the Prem. Contrary to his debut season, I think he's definitely been figured out a little bit, definitely fallen off, just too slow. I hate watching him. Yeah, I'll pass it off.
Yeah, Keagan, what you got?
That Kulusevski slander escalated quickly, man. It was ended with "I hate him." It started with "he's a bit too slow" and ended with "I hate him." Wow. I'm in like 75% disagreement with you, Chang. I think that I would put Kulusevski right behind, just in the names that I think are like the first names on the team sheet. I would say Madison's number 1. And Kulusevski's number 2. And then I think it's a kind of a shuffleboard between the rest of them. I would have said Basuma's number 3, but I'm just going to bleed Basuma out of it and just not think about that for a second. And I'll say it's kind of just a crapshoot of whoever works best in that tactical in the tactical needs that we have for that game between Bergvall, Gray, and Sarr. Yeah, so I'm going to say right now, I think our midfield 3 for the Leicester game will be Madison, Kulusevski, and Bentancur at the 6.
Interesting. Scott, where do you have these names in the shuffle?
Yeah, I might surprise a few people, and I think I'd rank Kulusevski at the top right now, and that's based on preseason form. He looks fantastic in the 8 and the 10 in preseason. He is an inverted winger. We don't use inverted wingers. We use inverted fullbacks and expect the wingers to stay wide. So he definitely doesn't fit the system as a wing. But But he's strong in the 10. And we don't use like a standard 10 that's just tucked in behind the striker, sitting there in the pocket, finding space, right? The 10 is expected to cover a little bit more ground. I think it's like dual 8/10s is more of what we use, right? But I think Kulusevski is the most talented of the bunch when it comes to technical ability and his ability to find space on the right pass. I have questions about Madison. I think he's shown tremendous form, but his entire career has just been up and down. He's never had a consistent form, right, to keep. I'm going to say it again. He was part of a team that was handily relegated, right, when he was brought in. And I'm not saying that's on him, but I think that, you know, when your main creative player is part of a team that gets relegated, it has to be considered. And again, I think just that up and down form. But I think he's behind Kulusevski as my second choice. I do think Sarr's up there as well. I think Sarr, again, back to the dips in form, is there with Madison, but he's much younger, much less experienced at the top level. I think he's a very talented footballer. His engine is higher than anyone else's on the team, in my opinion. He can really put the work in. And a lot of times with an 8, it's really all you need is somebody who can make the right pass, a simple pass, and produce quite an engine. So I'm really high on Sarr. I put Bentaker after him, and then I'd round it out with Archie Gray. It's a little harsh on Bentaker because he's very talented and can play multiple positions. He's very technical as well. He functioned really well as the 10 for Uruguay, but I do have him ranked a little bit lower than the other 3. And Eva Suma, I just think he's the dipshit, and I just could care less if he ever plays for Spurs again. I can't stand that guy. So, yeah, whatever. I'll rank him last, probably just out of spite and my own personal opinion of the guy. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. And like someone else said, I can't remember which one of you two said it, but I expect Madison, Kulusevski, and Bentaker to be the starting midfield tomorrow.
Yeah, so for me, I think it's the 2 Swedes at the top, and then Bentancur shortly after that. That's how highly I rate Bergvall.
Madison, Bergvall. Sorry to interrupt you. I never put Bergvall in there either. But yeah, go on. That's my own
yeah. Yeah. So then I probably got Madison in the 4 spot, and then after that, probably Basuma, then Sarr, then Gray. At the bottom, unfortunately. But yeah, that's about what I would say. And obviously, we're talking about teenagers here as well, who are super young, inexperienced. And it seems like we're going to have 5 teenagers that are heavily involved in the first team this year. So those are Wilson Odobert, Lucas Bergvall, Archie Gray, Will Lancashire, and Mikey Moore. So I invite us to do the same exercise for those 5. How would you rate their impact this year, Chang?
I think tied for first. I think these 2 definitely stand heads above the rest. Odobert and Bergvall, I think they're definitely going to be the most heavily involved teenagers. I think Archie Gray definitely comes in third. Will Lancashire, Mikey Moore, definitely fighting for minutes. Still Lancashire looks to be staying with us for this season. I think his minutes should be here and there, maybe if we're winning in like the 85th minute, Andrew give him some poverty minutes, the Brian Gill treatment. So I think Odobert definitely one of the guys fighting for a starting spot. I think as we integrate him, maybe a few weeks into the season, we could see him starting. Maybe not tomorrow, although I would like to see him tomorrow. Lucas Bergvall, I think his minutes are definitely going to be James Madison dependent. Obviously, a huge season for James Madison, coming off a bit of a disappointment last season, albeit with insane first 10 weeks. Missed the Euros, James Madison. We'll see how he can bounce back from all that disappointment. But if he's not up to the task, obviously Lucas Bergvall slots in there in the 10. So I think they're definitely the guys that are going to be playing the most. Archie Gray, little bit disappointing in midfield. Looked much better in preseason at right back, but as we know, Pedro Porro has that locked down every single week. So yeah, I think in terms of involvement, it definitely have to be Odobert, Bergvall, Archie Gray, then probably Mikey Moore, and then Will Lancashire at the bottom.
Yeah, I agree. I got Bergvall on top, and then followed by Bergvall, Gray, Moore, and then Lancashire. Last, any disagreement from you there, Keegan?
No, I have a similar list. One thing that I'd say is I would rank that list differently based on like long term value for Spurs than like this season's involvement.
So what would you go
in the
long
first team.
term?
Long term, in terms of talent, in terms of the players that I think will be the most impactful and most valuable for Spurs in the next 10 years, I think Archie Gray is number one, actually, for me. I think that like having an English midfielder that's a staple in a top English side is like something that's more valuable than like is talked about. And I just think he's an unbelievable talent. And all the reports out of the Spurs camp agree with that. Then many coaches are saying that we're just lucky to have him. So I'd rank Gray first, then Gray, then Mikey Moore, then Bergvall, then Wilson Odebear, then Will Lancashire, and I think that's a lot of them.
Yeah. So Scott, give me your 5 ranked for this season, and then give me your 5 for the future.
Yeah, I think what I might do, if you don't mind, is go a bit of a cop out here, but I do that to drive a point home. I don't think they're even rankable at this point, because I think that they're all going to be absolute world-class talents who will propel Tottenham to major honors in the future. I really do believe that. I think Gray and Bergvall are two of the best under 20 midfielders in the world, easily. I don't know enough about Odebear to say that confidently, but it appears that he's quite a talent. Will Lancashire, I think, is the biggest toss-up in that group, and that's just because of the striker position. You just never quite know. I think with a midfielder, defender, whomever it is, even a winger, right? You can see what's there. You can see what they bring to the overall vision and approach of an 11-man side. But with the striker, it comes down to, can you put the ball in the back of the net? It doesn't matter how it happens. Spacing, link up, all that stuff's important. But if either you score or you don't, right? And so I just don't. I don't know. I think time will tell with Will Lancashire, but I think everybody else on that list is absolute world class. And then if I had to put the number one stamp on somebody, it's Mikey Moore, and I think that he is the best player on the planet at his age level. And I'm talking, let's just say,
No.
I really do
Yamal?
think so. If all right. Point taken. Maybe number two. Close number two.
There we go.
But
Number 2.
If I'm talking 17-year-olds, and again, thank you for bringing up Lamal. That's a very strong point. But I really do think that he's right up there at the talent level of Lamine Yamal, amongst all 17-year-olds across the planet. I think Mikey Moore will have the most quote-unquote world-class level of anyone in that group. But I'm also thinking Bergvall will be very close. So overall, right, I said it was a cop-out, but I say that because I just want to drive the point home. We have 5 of the best midfielders on the planet at Spurs. You could make the argument, right? And it's really, really exciting. I think it also has to be said, let's make sure as Spurs fans that we have realistic expectations. They are teenagers, right? So I don't anticipate that they lead us to glory this season, right? But this is a long-term play. Long-term plays are something that I think is, and we're talking Spurs Twitter right now, which is not Spurs fandom, right? But they have a really hard time with patience and just really poor takes across the board holistically, right? So I think Spurs fans need to just, again, pump the brakes and practice patience and pace here. But really exciting times ahead.
Yeah. So for those 5 for the future, I would go Moore, Bergvall, Gray, Lancashire, Odebear, if I had to rank them. So enough of the chit chat. Let's get into the meat of it. This is our lineup and match day squad predictions. I'm going to invite Keegan. Give me your starting 11. Actually, let's do this. I assume we all have Vicario at goalkeeper. Right? Okay, let's do this. Let's go. Keegan, give me your back 4. and then
It's-
we'll go. Yeah.
Yeah, the back four is real simple. I don't think it changes from what we had last year. All these guys are the first names on the team sheet, and I think it's Destiny at left back, Mickey Van de Ven at right back, and Kuti at right center back. Or sorry, Mickey Van de Ven at left center back, Kuti at right center back, and then Petro Porro at right back.
And does anyone have anything different than that? I presume no. All right, so we can get right into the midfield. Chang, who is your midfield three for tomorrow?
As much as I hate to say it, I do have Kulusevski, like as Keegan mentioned earlier. I don't like Kulu, but he's gonna start. What am I gonna do about it? Nothing. Call up Ange, maybe. I don't know. Bentancur in the 6, Kulu and Madison as like the dual aids, probably shifting, interchanging like the 10 position, dropping deep to receive the ball, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah.
Does anyone have anything? That is mine as well. And I think Keagan and Scott both agree with that. Yeah. So I guess this is a full E&L lineup. Like we're all in agreement thus far. And Scott, what's your front three look like? I know one of them is bang on. Brennan Johnson on the right, but what are the other two?
Indeed. I think this one's simple too. I think it's Johnson on the right, Solanke up the middle, and Sonny on the left. I don't see anything different. And maybe we asked the question, does Solanke start quickly? I say absolutely. I don't know why he wouldn't, right? So yeah, Johnson, Solanke's son for me, and I expect that to be our front three until somebody shows Ans that it should change.
Yep. Does anyone have anything different from that? All right.
I don't have anything different than that. I want to just put a challenge for it on Richarlison and why we all think that Richarlison doesn't take back that starting spot, because when he did start last year, he scored goals for us.
I like that question, and I don't think I would say that he can't take his spot back. I just think he hasn't been involved enough in the preseason to start.
Injuries,
But I'm a big fan of Richarlison. I mean, I've said it a bunch of times on this show. When Sonny was at the Asian Cup, nine goals in 9 matches, and if we're talking a goal a match from a striker, you could argue that that's a world-class output, right, at the Premier League level. So, I love Richarlison, and I have every reason to think that him and Solanke will compete for minutes for sure when he gets back to full fitness.
Yep, completely agree. But right now it's Solanke's job, and Richarlison is the one that has to come take it. So that's a great segue to the bench. Keegan, who are your 9 players on the bench? I suspect we will have some difference. And in case you guys didn't hear, I assume everyone knows Bissouma is suspended for this game. We kind of alluded to it on the last podcast a little bit, but he is suspended, so he will not be featuring in any of our squads. But Keegan, give me your 9 that make up the substitutes.
Let me start by saying I'm not sure I have a full 9 in my notes here. I can give you 4 or 5 that I think will come off the bench. I think Wilson. I think Odegaard will make his debut in the squad. So Wilson, Odegaard, obviously Lucas Bergvall, and Archie Gray will be on the bench. Radu Dragusin. I think Fraser Forster's back from injury, so he'll be our backup goalkeeper. And Mikey Moore, I think, and Will Lancashire will be on the bench, as well as Richarlison.
Okay, so Timo Werner, Archie Gray.
Good call.
So Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, I've got Gray, I've got Dragusin, I've got Forster, I've got Bergvall, I've got Sarr, I've got Timo Werner, I've got Mikey Moore, and that leaves 2 spots, and that's where I think there's a little bit of a toss-up. I think you probably have to throw Lancashire on there unless you say Richarlison's ready to get some minutes at the end of the match, but we do need a secondary striker for sure. I'm just going to say this out of my desire to see him get minutes, and I'm going to go with Lancashire. But I just don't know how fit Richarlison is. He's training, we're hearing, right? But it's very fresh. So I'll go Lancashire. And then at that last spot, pragmatic approach here, but I'm going to go Ben Davies. And I think that's for simple reason that if anything were to happen to Udogie or Van de Ven, he can fill that void. And again, I don't even want to bring up something happening, needing one of those 2 to come off. But again, the pragmatic decision would be to have Ben Davies on the bench.
Yeah, Any disagreements there, Chang?
No, but I do want to ask the question: do we think Jed Spence will be on the bench tomorrow?
I can take this one. No, I don't. Because for me, I went and did the work. I put the 9 down that I thought would be in the squad. And with the signing of Wilson Odobert that Keegan just mentioned, he'll make his debut in the squad. I believe so too. It's been 2 days. He can definitely feature on the bench. I think that kicks Jed Spence out with the cover there at right back going to be Archie Gray if anything happens to Porro. So I've got Austin, I've got Dragishin, I have Richarlison in the squad. I think he's healthy enough to be on the bench. Odobert, and then I got Gray, Bergvall, Sarr for the midfield subs, and then I have Moore and Timo Werner. I just think Werner has to be like he's making the third highest wages on the team, and he is actually pretty decent coming off the bench despite my concerns about him. So I do think that kicks Spence, and I have Spence, Davies, and Lancashire as the 3 missing out today. And then obviously Ollie Skip has transferred, and then Lo Celso, Reguilon, and Solomon are trying to find a move away, so they will not feature.
I think the interesting question that we can ask is, do we need 3 wingers on the bench, right? In Timo, Mikey Moore, and Odobert? I don't think we do. I think we want all those 3 on the bench for sure, right? As fans, it'll come down to whether Ange prefers a third winger or a Ben Davies on the bench for me. I think Ben Davies would be the one out of my 9 to make way for Odobert if that happens. But yeah, time will tell. Especially when you consider Gray can play either side, right? I think there's viable cover there. But it's going to come down to whether or not Ange feels safer with Ben Davies or having a third winger on the bench. I frankly would be pissed too if Odobert was on the bench over Mikey Moore. So I would like to see him if he's on the bench instead of Ben Davies, right? Assuming Archie Gray can play both sides again. So
yeah, that's the thing for me where it's like Timo Werner is the odd man out for me personally, but I just don't see a world where he's just not in the squad. Like that would just be, I don't know. I just don't know what would happen there. So yeah, out of Odobert, Moore, and Werner, if you have to take 2 out of 3, Keegan and Chang, which 2 are you taking?
As a fan, I obviously lean towards Mikey Moore and Wilson Odobert. But again, like you said, like the experience of Timo Werner, and he does provide the one singular skill of taking one step to the left and taking 2 dribbles and crossing it. So as long as he can do that to a okay quality, like he is kind of valuable to us. But as a fan, I really want to see Wilson Odobert and Mikey Moore and Timo Werner out. I just don't think that's realistic. So I think Mikey Moore might be the odd man out. And we'll see Mikey feature in a lot more FA Cup / Europa League matches. But I think, Mikey Moore is just, we'll see him feature in other matches. But I think for the first game of the Prem season, it could be Timo Werner and Wilson Odobert.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I think it's not quite Moore's time. I think this is the Premier League, you know. I think some off competitions will definitely see more Mikey Moore, but as a fan, I would love to see him. But as a realist, probably Odobert and Timo Werner. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't disagree with what either of you are saying, but I think with a guy like Mikey Moore, I think you roll the dice, and I think you see what you have. I look at guys like Wayne Rooney. I look at guys like Michael Owen, and they don't become who they are if they're not given the chance at 17 years old, in my opinion. So I think there's a lot to be said for Odobert continuing to bed in. I mean, we just signed him, right? I know we're all excited about it, but he's got a lot to learn when it comes to this system, and Mikey Moore's been living and breathing this system since Ames got here. So I don't know. I'd like to see Mikey Moore over Odobert. I really think that we're talking about Lamine Yamal, right? He was one of the best players at the Euros, and if we're talking about Mikey Moore potentially being on that level, then I don't know why we don't give him a rib. Just speaking out loud here, I'm not pushing back on anything, but be curious to see what Ange does.
I would love to give him a shot, and I just want to reiterate from the jump, how dumb I think that renewing Timo Werner's loan was. Like, I have not been for this. I know me and Scott, the day it happened, I was texting Scott. I was like, this is idiotic. He is making the third highest wages on the team. He's the third oldest player on the team, and he's not going to fucking play. So, yeah, fuck that guy, dude. Anyway, and he's from Chelsea. Anyway, let's get right into our score prediction. Scott, I'm going to throw it to you. Give us your official prediction for the team tomorrow.
4-1 Spurs. I think Solanke scores 2 goals. I think my boy Brendan scores a goal. It's probably a tap in, but my boy Brendan scores a goal. And then I think Madison gets on the score sheet, which is maybe a little bit of a hot take from the things that I've said, but I expect a big one from Madison tomorrow. And I'm just Leicester's goal. This is all for fun for me, but I'm thinking a Winksy banger. So we'll see. But I do expect Leicester to score a goal. And I expect them to score a goal because we'll have only Mick van de Ven back, as we're so high, and Romero's probably in the 6, and we'll get beat on a counter and they'll score. So we'll see.
Keagan?
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-1 Spurs, goals from Solanke, Madison, and Kulusevski. And I just think we're more likely to win the Champions League this season than keep a clean sheet on opening day. And we're not even in the Champions League, so that's my point. And I think it'll be Tom Cannon, the upcoming Leicester striker, that'll get a goal for them at some point. I want to get his name correct in there.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you.
Yep. So that's my prediction.
What you got, Shang?
I'm gonna say we keep the clean sheet. Who does Leicester really have that can hurt us? I think
Cannon.
All right.
Winksy, baby.
All right. I think we keep the clean sheet. I think our defense is too good not to. I think obviously optimistic. 3-0. I think Solanke gets off the mark. I think Son opens his account for this season, and I think Madison gets one. Show his desire a little bit.
Revenge game.
For sure. So I think Madison. I think he scores a banger. I think he holds his hands up like that. I think it'll be pretty cool. 3-0. 3-0. Calm.
Yeah, I got same as Keagan 3-1. I'm gonna go with Solanke, Son, and Kulu as the goal scorers. And yeah, so I think we all got a Spurs win to kick off the season, as we should, against some relegation fodder. So that is our preview for the game. And now we have a couple extra segments regarding the loans and academy. So first is the loan roundup, brought to you by Cascades in Puyallup, where you can go find, for all the South Sounders out there, you can go watch the Spurs games with Seattle Spurs down in Puyallup at the Cascades Bar. They will not be showing the match tomorrow, as it is a weekday, but most weekends the Cascades are open and available for all your Spurs watching needs. So now we get to the loan roundup, and we have our Brian Hill foremost expert here in the corner, Alex Chang. How was Brian Hill's performance this week in the La Liga opening day?
So I've actually been talking. I watched the entire game. I pirated it. So I did pirate the entire game right before when I should have been studying for my final. So that shows how much I love my boy Brian Gill. And honestly, I've been talking about it throughout the week with people who don't care about Brian Gill, people who don't care about Tottenham, and apparently I'm going to be continue to talk about it with people who don't care about Brian Gill. But anyways, 7.6 match rating on SofaScore, tied for third highest in the game with no goals or assists, which really shows his impact. If he's like getting no goals or assists and ranking that high. He had 3 successful dribbles from 5 attempted, which is the most in the game. One thing that did worry me, though, is that he did lose possession 19 times, which is probably more times than he's had possession in a Spurs shirt in his entire career. So it's pretty crazy. Obviously, from the eye test, I thought he looked good. I think he was beating his man consistently. He had good, he was getting some good touches on the ball. But obviously, Girona, they're probably in for a difficult season. They lost, Dovbyk to Roma, scored 24 goals for them last season. Savinho, this is probably their most direct Savinho replacement. Obviously, went to Man City, who got 9 goals, 10 assists for them last year. And I really can't see Brian Gill matching those numbers in the slightest. So Girona probably gonna bomb out of the UCL, probably gonna mid-table finish in the La Liga. But Brian Gill as a whole, I thought he looked promising. I thought he looked quick. I think the fan base, from what I've seen on Instagram, pretty split on him. I think some think that he showed promise. They think he has potential, but others, they can't help but see the downgrade from Savinho, which I probably would have to agree if I were a Girona fan. So I think his end product isn't quite there yet. I think some of his crosses weren't really finding their targets. He had a few shots that were off target, but overall, I think his career in a Spurs shirt is done. Honestly, as much as it pains me to say, but I would like to see him have a promising career somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll jump right in. No one wants to do this alone roundup. It's Matthew Craig, who is currently playing for Barnsley. He's featured 3 times, 62, 57, and 56 minutes. All starts, all yanked around the 60-minute mark. No goals, no assists. Attaboy, Matthew. Keep on. Yeah, so I'll go right along to Keegan McMurray, who has Jamie Donnelly, who has recently extended his contract and gone out loan to League One side, Leighton Orient. Keegan, what do you think of the move? And what do you think of Donnelly's performance in his first game yesterday?
Yeah, I'm really excited about the move. I think Spurs and Leighton Orient have a great relationship. Andros Townsend did a loan there. Obviously, Harry Kane had a loan there. And now Jamie Donnelly, and obviously there's more probably that I couldn't tell you. But I think Jamie Donnelly has just unbelievable quality with his left foot for his age. Literally within minutes of his debut, he took the ball down and played a beautiful little slipped pass through into a striker and created a chance. Yeah, I think he'll be a really awesome asset for Leighton Orient this season. And I really hope that next season he will have built up his reputation enough to find himself an upper level championship loan, or maybe even a lower level Prem loan. But yeah, I have a lot of faith in Jimmy Donnelly, and I think he showed a lot of potential in his first start for Leighton.
Awesome. Yeah, Scott, we got Dane Scarlett getting a championship move to Oxford United. This is his second attempt at a loan in the championship. He did come on in the 90th minute yesterday, and they immediately conceded and lost the game 3-2. So, thoughts on Dane Scarlett's move to Oxford? What do you think he's going to do this season?
Not much, to be honest. I'm not sold on Dane Scarlett any longer. I think there was a moment where we had a lot of hope as a fan base that he would turn into something special, and we were always looking for the next Harry Kane, right? Is what we're doing as Spurs fans now. But I just don't think Dane Scarlett's that guy. He was on loan last year and immediately sent back as he was deemed unnecessary. And again, he was at Ipswich. I do believe Ipswich. I hope I'm correct on that.
Yep.
But was sent straight back, and again, they just didn't feel that he offered enough to be in and around the squad. I think he's probably a great example of what I mentioned earlier in the show, where as Spurs fans, we like to emotionally hold on to players who come through the academy, but I just frankly don't think Dane Scarlett's good enough. I think mid-table championship is probably his max level, if not a little bit lower than that. But he's 10 times a striker I'll ever be or have been in my career, right? So nothing but respect for Dane Scarlett, but I think he'll probably earn a permanent move at some point in the next 12 months.
Yeah, not to crap on the guy, but he sucks and shouldn't be on Spurs books any longer. So I'm going to bounce it right back to you, Scott. Alfie Devine linked with multiple clubs in the championship. This is a player that I think collectively we're all really excited about. Which championship clubs do you have your eye on for him to get loaned out to?
It's a really good question. I think it's got to be somebody at the top of the table competing for honor. I looked at any of the three clubs that were bounced from the Premier League last year as a viable option for him. But I'm not going to give a club specifically, and I just say anyone that thinks they have a chance at going for a championship title, or at least promotion, or we could say top 6 finish, which gives them a shot at promotion, right?
Yeah.
Playoff team. So I'd love to see Leeds, honestly, and I only say that just because there's that Joe Rodon connection there, and obviously Joe's a permanent Leeds player at this point, but has knowledge of what it means to be a Spurs player and be on loan and work towards coming back into the squad. But again, any top 6 aspirational side would be good for Divine. And I'll also say with Divine, I think he's only going out on loan because we're incredibly deep in the midfield. I think if we weren't so deep in the midfield, we would see him as someone who's worth having around. When we brought him in 3 seasons ago, every team in the Premier League, top 5, top 6, 7, whatever we want to call it, we're vying for his signature to come in as a youth player. Spurs secured that move, and it was a coup at the time, right? And I think things have calmed down really only because we're used to it being around now, but it was a major coup when we brought him in, and I do think he's going to have a really, really promising and just accomplished career somewhere. Hope it's at Spurs, right? But again, I think a top 6 side would be great for him.
Yep, completely agree with that. And then I'm going to kick it to Chang as our La Liga expert now. Ashley Phillips has been linked to Getafe. Thoughts on this and potential loan out to La Liga for Ashley?
I mean, as in like a English youngster, it's sometimes hard going abroad to Spain. Not a lot of connection there. I think it'd be interesting. Getafe, really don't know much about them. Don't know like their defensive record, anything. Notable players. I think it is nice that he's going to a top 5 league as opposed to like the Championship or League One. I think it's a big step up for him. Whether he gets minutes or not, I'm not really sure. Like I said, don't really know much about Getafe, but I think it would be a decent move for him. I think La Liga, it's a bit of a slower league, as we know. So wouldn't be the worst, I think. Wouldn't be the worst.
Yeah, and then just to wrap up our loan roundup, Keagan, including Alejo Valise, who we talked about a bit, going to Espanyol in the last episode. Who are you most excited about their loan spell for this season in terms of their growth?
Out of all those players, I think that the player that I'm most excited for is probably either Alfie Devine or Jamie Donnelly. I know that I mentioned before that I think having an English midfielder in the top 6 English side is really important. And to have a player that you can root for and to go play for the England squad is really important. I think that those two have the potential to do that. I agree. I just want Alfie Devine to go somewhere where he's guaranteed minutes in a possession-based side, and I think Leeds is a great example of that. I think maybe Burnley would be a good fit for him. But I was really impressed with Alfie Devine's preseason, and I think that he has potential to be like just a really excellent professional, and I hope that's with Spurs, obviously. But I just want him to go somewhere where he's guaranteed minutes. And I think that's why Jamie Donnelly went to Leyton Orient. I'm not sure that he would have been guaranteed minutes in a championship side just yet. But I think Alfie has that professionalism in his game to really be a guaranteed starter, first name on the team sheet for a upper level championship side. So I'm really excited about Alfie Devine.
Yep, agreed. Personally, I think Jamie is ready to play in the championship, and if the championship clubs don't see it that way, then so be it. So moving on to the Academy Watch segment. This is where I was planning to cook a little bit on the Academy. So we had our debuts for the 21s and the U18s. So the 21s defending champs away at Cobham to Chelsea, and we get a Tyrese Hall brace. Among others featured in the squad, Oliver Iro, George Abbott, Jude Sunsu-Bell, Damola Ayayi, Max Robson. Those are all guys that have been in and around the first team. I expect Robson to go, but Tyrese Hall, again, the main man for that academy team. So does anyone have any reactions to Tyrese Hall's brace in the opener for the academy?
I just say that for Tyrese, it's a great opportunity this season to be the main man for that squad, and that does wonders for players' confidence. You know, when the team can be thrown on their shoulders and when they truly feel that they're the best player on the field, right? He wasn't last year, and that's evident when we look at what's happened this year. You know, with guys from that team. But yeah, he'll have a chance to really prove himself. It's a huge season for him because it would have been pretty punishing to his confidence to have seen some of his compatriots and probably close friends at this point get a chance with the first team, like a Lancashire, like a Mikey Moore, right? And he's still stuck down playing with the U21. So he'll have to get over that mental hurdle of not quite making it this year when some of those who are close to him have. But again, if he takes the opportunity to be the main man, I think he can have a really good season and be where Lancashire and Mikey Moore are this year, next year.
Yeah, agreed. And then the 18s, 6-4 thriller against Crystal Palace. What is going on in defense? That featured Janai Byfield, 16-year-old, who did play in one preseason game. But Luca Williams-Barnett is the one to watch from the U18 squad. He is only 15 years of age, and he has bagged 2 goals and an assist already and has been another highly touted prospect for our academy. So Luca Williams-Barnett, remember the name. And then for the U16s, we have 14-year-old Ike Umorin. So yeah, just remember the name. He has been cooking lately. His highlight tape is ridiculous. So Ike Umorin from the U16s was cooking, and Chang just said scouting 14-year-olds is insane. Personally, hey, Mikey Moore's 16. We're only 2 years out from EK being that age, so we gotta keep pushing with these 16-year-olds. So Leo Black, also shout out to him. He featured for the 18s. He's been another highly touted prospect. So that is our Academy Watch segment, and we're just going to finish up with Around the Grounds. Does anyone have any takeaways from this weekend across the Premiership that are not Spurs related, or you saw a team look a certain way that might impact Spurs? Does anyone have any Premier League takeaways from the weekend? Feel free to share.
I don't have a ton. Pretty standard first week. I think where teams are still starting to figure some things out. Even United, who I think we were up in the air, they
Scammed to win.
Had a pretty flat performance, and yeah, great shot, scammed to win. Xerxes got his goal. I think Xerxes is a very talented player and is a good example. And obviously, I'm not referring to anyone on this show when I say this, but I think oftentimes, like diehard Premier League fans or fans of clubs in the Premier League don't often watch other leagues and maybe still want to give takes on other leagues, right? Because there's this like air of supremacy with the Premier League. So I think Xerxes probably will surprise a lot of people, but I watch a ton of Serie A. I'm Italian. My grandfather, is very Italian and speaks Italian and whatnot, right? So I'm a huge Serie A fan, and in another life, I may have chosen a club out of Serie A, right? My heart found Spurs, but Xerxes is super talented, and I expect him to have a big year at Man United, which I hate saying because I can't stand the club and the organization, but Xerxes is a real talent, and that finish was real clean yesterday, and I expect more of the same from him.
I want to give a quick shout out to Brighton. I think Brighton looked really strong. They just recently, after the exit of Roberto De Zerbi, they hired the youngest manager in the Prem, Fabian Hertzzeller. and they looked really strong against Everton. I think that they'll be a team that will surprise a lot of people. I think they'll challenge at least for the 6 through 10 spots, maybe even higher. Who knows? But yeah, a team to look out for sure under this new this young, exciting manager.
He's from Houston, Texas, too, originally, which is pretty incredible. An American being the youngest ever Premier League manager is pretty cool, and I think that's a great shout, Keagan. He seems to be a real talent. Brighton's always right there. They're sneaky. They scout so well. I mean, honestly, the top six's scouting department pretty much just lets Brighton do all the legwork, and then they pick from there, right? So Brighton will continue to be a team that finishes somewhere between like 5 and 10th every season, and we'll continue to push for more. So good shout.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna piggyback off that. Everton down to 10 men. Ashley Young getting the red card there. He will be unavailable for the Spurs game next week. Fabian Schär also getting a straight red on. I can't even fathom how that was just a dumb play all around. I don't know how who are they playing, Southampton or someone, how that guy didn't get a red card as well, because he definitely provoked Schär. But this means that Schär will be unavailable for selection should he get the full 3-game ban when we travel to St. James. So with all that, we are going to wrap up here with, I'm going to go top 6 predictions and 3 going down for everyone here. And I'll start with you, Scott. Who is your top 6 and who is your 3 going down?
Yeah, I think City wins the league. I hate saying it, but I think Arsenal finishes second. I think Spurs finish third, which is fantastic and feels really good to say. 4th, 5th, and 6th is a little bit tricky. I think Liverpool probably would be my pick for 4th. They looked good yesterday, especially in the second half. They came out flying. 6th, I'm going to go Man United, and that leaves 5th place for me. I'll go Aston Villa. And then as far as relegation goes, Leicester City, like I said, is bang on to finish last, in my opinion. I expect Ipswich to go back down. As much as I love that fairy tale story to keep progressing, right? I just think any team that was in League One 2 years ago is just going to get absolutely smoked in the Premier League. So I expect them to go down. I think Southampton will stay up, and I think Forest will be the 3rd team to go down with Ipswich and Leicester City. So.
Yeah, Keagan.
Sorry, guys. I think that my top 6 is going to be pretty similar. It'll be City, Arsenal, Liverpool. I think Newcastle will finish 4th with no European football. I think they're going to have a really strong season, a couple strong signings. And I think it'll be a toss-up between United, Villa, and Spurs for the 5th and 6th spots. I think it'll probably be Spurs in 6th and United in 5th. Let me see that caveats with Spurs winning the Europa League. That was my prediction. And then going down, I have I think Brentford are going to go down. I think they're going to lose Ivan Toney to he's had links with Saudi clubs. I think it'll be Brentford. I think Leicester will finish comfortably last with the point deductions. And then that 3rd spot, I'm probably going to give to Ipswich Town. Just they made some good signings. I just think the inexperience in the league, similar to how Luton was last year, will ultimately put them down.
Yeah. And yeah, just to wrap it up, I got City, Arsenal, Tottenham, and then in 4th, I'll go with Liverpool, and then Newcastle 5th, Chelsea 6th. And then going down, I have the same 3 that came up: Southampton, Ipswich, and Leicester. And that will do it for our pod today, covering Poch, Odebear, and the Leicester match. We will be back hopefully super soon to talk about our debut game. So thank you guys for listening. Follow Scott on Twitter at ScottGBird, me at Going Limbs, Keagan at Keagan McMurray, and Chang had to dip for work, but at Alex Chang, I think. And then, yeah, and Lilywhite on Twitter for our Twitter page, Emerald_Lilywhite on Instagram, and at Seattle Spurs on everything else for Seattle Spurs. So come check us out. Come to the Wits, come to Cascades. And thank you guys for listening. And as always, come on, you
Come on, you Spurs.